What's up, guys? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and I'm back with another Unearthed Arcana review from Wizards of the Coast Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. It's so weird to not say Xanathar's Guide to Everything / Unearthed Arcana review comparison video. To the point where I'm having struggles actually getting the words out here. So I know I haven't released all of those videos yet. There's still one left to go, which will be the Wizard, which should probably be coming out tomorrow. But this just new Unearthed Arcana did release. It's the second Monday of the month. That is their new release cadence, the second Monday. So this is what we have here is a 3 subclasses, which seems like a shocker to me, to be honest with you. I figured they would have probably continued to focus on races or other mechanics, mostly because we just got a whole book full of subclasses. I would have thought we would have had larger focus on other aspects of the game, because we got Volos, which was new monsters and new races, a few new races. Then we had Xanathars, which was just a ton of class information, new spells, new magic items, and things like that. So I didn't know what the next book was going to be, but if they keep the same release cadence they've had, we should get an adventure around June-ish or so, and then a new source book come November. So I thought we were going to get on that, but it's interesting to see them make 3 new subclasses, which I wouldn't have anticipated those ending up in the final version. Again, not to say that they'll end up in a published source, but that they're working on new Unearthed Arcana this frequently. So why don't we go ahead and jump over to the website here. So here's where it is. The link for this will be in the description. Kick 2018 off with 3 new subclasses. There'll be a survey out to see, so let's talk about it. So, I've actually had a lot of discussions with a lot of my friends and people that have run in my circles about these, and it's interesting to see the polarity I've seen between people's thoughts on these classes. So first up is Circle of Spores Druid. Personal opinion right up front, I really like this class because I was a fan of all of the bizarre and off prestige classes for Druids back in the 3.5 days, and there was one called the Blighter, which was sort of the anti-plant kind of death decay druid, and this seems to be as close as we're going to get. This is more of a fungal based, but that all sort of fits thematically. So basically this is, there's a little bit of flavor text here. Death is not the end of life, complex relationship with undead, blah blah blah. So what do we get? First of all, you get Chill Touch as a cantrip at first level, so that's a nice addition, as you don't have a ton of options for cantrips as druid for damage. So this is this is one where at least you get to roll a melee, or an attack roll rather, for your cantrip, and it does shut down healing, and it's necrotic damage. Then an interesting thought process, at 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th level, you get circle spells. Now, we've seen the circle spells were previously only a thing for Circle of the Land Druid. Circle of the Moon Druid don't get specific spells, and neither did Circle of the Shepherd or Circle of Dreams. So this is the first time we're seeing them bring them back to getting circle spells, but still having other aspects. Now, the reason I think about this is because certain classes, like every new Ranger subclass in Xanathar's, got spells, so it kind of only makes sense to go back and give the existing Player's Handbook Rangers a spell per level, just to make them on par with everything else. We've seen a couple of Sorcerers get additional spells, and Warlocks have their options, so this is interesting. You get these they don't count against the number of spells prepared each day, and they count as druid spells. So you get Gentle Repose, Ray of Enfeeblement. Both of those I don't believe. Gentle Repose may be a druid spell, Ray of Enfeeblement is not. Animate Dead and Gaseous Form, both of those I don't believe are. Blight is, Confusion I don't believe is, and then Cloud Kill and Contagion. Interesting spell choices. Definitely some very thematic with the undead spore kind of, mostly the undead theme here, or death and dying. Things like Gentle Repose, but you also get some decent options for your druid to expand out some of your damage capabilities, or movement capabilities like Gaseous Form, or Animate Dead has its uses, and you don't have to prepare Blight now, which is nice. At 2, you get Halo of Spores. This is a very interesting ability because it's the first time we've seen something like this. So you can launch toxic spores at an enemy. To do so, you use your reaction on your turn to deal 3 poison damage to one creature you can see within 10 feet of you. This damage increases at 6 at 6, 9 at 10, and 12 at 14. So it's weird that it uses your reaction, but it specifies that it has to use your reaction on your turn. So the thought process is probably, I'm going to hit this guy, let me soften him up a little bit with poison damage. But realistically, the way I see it is, I hit this guy, I think he's probably almost dead. Let me use my reaction and blast him with some poison damage and hope that does him in. My only complaint about this class, it is heavily reliant on poison damage. And as anyone has flipped through a monster manual knows, more often than not, most creatures in the monster manual, like 2 of the most highly resisted, resistance-wise damages in all of the game is fire and poison, and a fair few creatures are immune to poison, so that kind of makes this, again, humanoids, you're fine, but like, I mean, even dwarves have resistance to poison, so you just run the risk of, you have to be smart when you use this ability. Also, at level 2, you get Symbiotic Entity. When you use your Wild Shape feature, you can awaken the spores within you, rather than transforming into a creature. You can still choose to transform into an animal if you wish, but you can use this to not do that. When you do so, you gain 3 temporary hit points per level you have in this class, and the damage of your Halo Spore or Halo of Spores feature doubles, and your melee weapon attacks deal an extra 1d6 poison damage to any target they hit. These benefits last for 10 minutes or until you use your Wild Shape again. So this I really like because it gives you another option for your Wild Shape rather than turning into an animal, but it doesn't negate the ability to turn into an animal. Like a Circle of Moon Druid can turn as a bonus action and then eventually turn into elementals. This gives you something else to use for your Wild Shape, but it still lets you activate this feature as an action, but you can still use your spells. You can do all of that stuff. And again, at level 20, that's 60 temporary hit points, and at level 20, you can unlimited Wild Shape. So if you really need something, you can get these. But the only downside is these benefits end when your Wild Shape. Benefits for last for 10 minutes or until you use your Wild Shape again. So the benefits you don't keep the temporary hit points outside of this form. So you also double the damage of your Halo of Spores. So at level 2, when you use this, that does 6 poison damage. It's a static 6 poison damage. Again, that is one creature you can see within 10 feet of you. That is poison damage with no attack roll and no save. So that is nice because it's a guaranteed damage if they're not resistant or immune. And again, combining Symbiotic Entity with Halo of Spores at level 2 is a guaranteed 6 damage. I mean, that's a dead kobold, right? Like, that is insta-kill for kobold or some other things that are weaker like that, almost to a goblin. So then again, at highest level possible, when you use this at level 14, it would deal 24 points of poison damage in one go as a reaction, no saving throw, no attack roll. And then you also get the benefit, you have the temporary hit points to help make you last longer, and in these fights, you have the extra damage from the Halo of Spores, but your melee weapon attacks also deal an extra d6 poison damage. Now, I didn't look through it, but you may be able to sync this up with certain spells that let you do melee weapon attacks, like Flame Blade, for instance, or, Zephyr Strike, or whatever, any of the new Xanathar spells that let you make melee weapon attacks as part of an attack. This would function for that as well. Again, it's only a d6 poison damage, but if you were to, say, bonus action cast Shillelagh, your Shillelagh, your Quarterstaff is now doing a d8 plus your Wisdom modifier, using Wisdom modifier for the attacks, and now that does an extra d6 poison damage. So a d8 plus a d6 plus your Wisdom modifier at level 2 with the opportunity to do 6 poison damage without a save. Level 6, you get the Fungal Infestation if you slay a humanoid with your Halo of Spores damage, which is, again, the damage you do as a reaction. The creature rises as a zombie at the end of your turn. It has 1 hit point. In combat, its turn is immediately after yours. It obeys your mental commands, and the only action it can take is the attack action, making 1 melee attack. It remains animate for 1 hour, after which time it collapses and dies. And this is basically a cool thematic, definitely, where your fungus and your fungal infestation basically is animating this creature more or less as a shell. Like the fungus is controlling the body. And I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe there is some sign of this happening in nature where like some sort of fungus or infection takes over the body of a creature. And the creature dies, but they continue moving around and living, technically, for a little while based with just this fungus or just this infection keeping them like animate and moving, but the creature is technically dead. So there is cool science, you know, trying to bring in some real world stuff to this. Plus, I mean, there is no limit to the number of these things you can have. So you can continually kill things with your Halo Spores feature and continue to raise zombies. They last for 1 hour, right? Let's see. If you slay a humanoid, it rises as a zombie at the end of your turn. It obeys your action, the only action it can take. Yeah, it does not have a limit to the number. So, I mean, you want to get technical, right? You can start going after things that have minimal hit points, kill them, and raise a fungal army with 1 hit point for an hour. And again, that could just be cannon fodder, right? For things to just go run in to take hits for you. I mean, or if you get a massive army, you get kind of like that whole zombie apocalypse thing going, right? Where the things are super easy to kill, but their numbers alone put them in the they're gonna take you out just because they make that many attacks. At 10, you get spreading spores. As a bonus action, you can hurl your fungal spores up to 30 feet away, where they swirl around in a 10-foot cube for a minute. While the cube of spores persists, you can't use your Halo of Spores feature, but any creature that starts its turn in the cube takes your Halo of Spores damage. The cube of spores vanishes early if you use this feature again. So again, that is basically allowing to do your 10-foot reaction thing here as a bonus action to throw it. I mean, and again, it doesn't... You can't use your Halo of Spores feature, but that's a bonus action. So you can still cast as an action. You can still activate your symbiotic entity as an action, and then throw your spores 30 feet as a bonus action, allowing you to deal the increased damage from symbiotic entity, doubling the Halo of Spores damage, but in a radius out to 30 feet. And again, it stays there for a minute. So that has the benefit of, you know, you can do that, and then you have the extra damage. It stays in one place. If you can lock somebody down with, say, a hold person spell or something like that, they'll just sit there and eat that damage every turn on top of whatever else you do. So that's very nice, and again, this is one of these classes that just I have to praise for the synergy, right? It synergizes very well with its own features. And again, it gives you a range option for this. And then lastly, at 14, you get Fungal Body. The fungal spores alter your body. You can't be blinded, deafened, frightened, or poisoned. And then if attack is a critical hit against you, it doesn't deal its extra damage to you. That one seems like a function of old D&D where plants couldn't be critical hit, because that's not a thing that I don't think we see in the monster manual. Like, I don't think myconoids can't be crit, or they take regular damage. But I like that it's nostalgic for me, so I am a fan of Circle of Spores. Next, we have the Brute Fighter. I didn't think we needed more fighters, but we did get more. Full stop, what this is Champion Fighter, but increased damage versus increased crit. So Champion Fighter does a few things, and then they get increased critical hit range to 19 to 20 at 3 and 18 to 20 at 15. This gives you basically almost the same things, but in place of an expanded crit range, it's in expanded damage. So, at level 3, you have Brute Force. Whenever you hit with a melee weapon that you're proficient with and deal damage, the weapon's damage increases by an amount based on your level in the class. And you can see here, a D4 at 3, a D6 at 10, a D8 at 16, and a D10 at 20. Again, this is a very powerful ability because this never is not useful. So at level 3, you have 1 attack, 2 attacks with Action Surge. Whatever you're wielding now does an extra D4 damage each hit. When you hit up to level 11, you're doing 3 attacks on a turn. That's an extra 3d6 damage a turn for the attacks, an extra 66 if you Action Surge. So you get the point that this is just, and this is constant, always on. And I mean, that could be a dagger, a D4 plus a D4, but that could be a great axe doing a D12 plus a D4, or D12 plus a D8 later on. So you have a lot of options to deal extra damage. And again, because it's an extra damage die, if you crit, that doubles as well. So a crit with a, I don't know, a longsword at level 3 would do 2d8 plus 2d4 plus your, you know, associated modifier. Again, power, a weird, doesn't seem to fit what I would have thought Wizards was going for 5e. It just seems off to me. It's not overpowered by any means. It just seems weird. 7th level ability is ridiculously OP and needs to be changed. Whenever you make a saving throw, you add a d6 to the saving throw. Whenever that is. Just roll a d6 and add it. No matter what. Not number of times per day, not before the DM tells you if you pass or fail. It is just a d6 every time you make a saving throw. And if applying this bonus to a death saving throw increases the total to 20 or higher, you gain the benefits of a 20 on the d20, meaning that you would immediately gain a hit point and stand up. This has been a big polarizing ability again. A lot of people, I think, hate this ability, think it's way too overpowered. A lot of people are saying nix the natural 20, nix the death saves, leave death saves as they are. They're sort of a 50-50 shot. Some classes give you advantage on them, and that's fine, but don't do things that alter it. My suggestion, brutish durability is usable constitution modifier times per long rest. And that's before the DM lets you know if you pass or fail. Because you have Indomitable, which works when you fail. So this seems kind of weird, right? You have Indomitable that works when you fail a saving throw, but every saving throw you make, you add a d6. So it kind of makes it like, I don't know, it kind of makes it dumb in my opinion, but it is what it is. Additional fighting style. So again, exactly like the champion fighter, you get a second fighting style. At 15, rather than again enhanced crit range, when you score a critical hit with a weapon attack, you gain a bonus to the weapon's damage equal to your level in this class. Okay? So at 15, if you crit, you do an extra 15 points of damage on that hit. Plus your extra d6 damage from your brute bonus level, plus whatever the base damage of the weapon is. And then again, you can still make multiple attacks. Now, maybe I feel biased because I tend to roll relatively high and roll a lot of crits, so I feel like this is crazy damage here. But maybe that's just me. And then lastly, level 18, you get the Survivor ability, which is a copy-paste from the champion. At the start of each of your turns in combat, you regain hit points equal to 5 plus your con mod, assuming you don't have 0 hit points and you don't have more than half your HP. So under half HP, but above 0, you gain 5 plus your con mod HP back. And lastly, we have the School of Invention Arcane Tradition for Wizards. This is a weird name for it. It's not very invention-y, I don't think. But it basically is their fix to the Lore Wizard, which was way too OP as it was. And they recognized that, so they tweaked it and made it this. What do we get? We get proficiency with 2 tools of our choice, and we get Arcano-Mechanical Armor, which isn't really, like, then it kind of is weird, right? So Arcano-Mechanical Armor basically just gives you proficiency with light armor, and you get a suit of magic armor that you can attune to. This suit of magic armor provides you with an AC of 12 plus your dex mod, so the same as studded leather armor, potentially negating your need for mage armor as a spell. It weighs 8 pounds. You get a new suit at the end of a long rest by touching a non-magical suit of studded leather armor. There you go. You also get a really cool feature called Reckless Casting. When you attempt to cast a spell, you can attempt to cast a spell you don't have prepared. When you use this ability, you use your action to choose one of the following options. Roll on the Reckless Casting table for cantrips and cast the resulting cantrip. Or expend a spell slot and roll twice on the Reckless Casting table for its level. Or the 5th level table if the slot is 6th level or higher. Pick which of the 2 results you want to use and cast the resulting spell as part of the action. If you cast the spell as a wizard spell, it's treated as a wizard spell. So, let's look at Reckless Casting. Roll a d10, we're going to cast a cantrip. Roll a d10. You can cast Acid Splash, Chill Touch, Firebolt, Light, Poison Spray, Ray of Frost, Shocking Grasp, Sacred Flame, or Thorn Whip. Or 10, roll twice and cast each cantrip. But if you roll another 10 on either die, you cast nothing, wasting your action. So if you roll a 10 and then roll 2 3s, you cast Firebolt twice. Then if you cast again as the up, you use a slot. So you can spend a first level spell slot to roll a d10 to cast something on this list. Just Burning Hands, Chromatic Orb, Color Spray, Fairy Fire, False Life, Fog Cloud, Jump, Magic Missile, or Thunder Wave. Again, a 10, roll a d10, and cast each spell, but if you roll another 10 on either die, you waste your action doing nothing. And then so on and so forth, and then for any slot above 5th level, it uses the 5th level table. We see 2nd level, they all have the same 10 ability, but 2nd level we have Blur, Darkness, Enlarge, Reduce, Gust of Wind, Invisibility, Levitate, Melts, Acid Arrow, Scorching Ray, and Shatter. So far, most of these, with the exception, I think, of Fairy Fire, are all wizard spells. 3rd, we get Blink, Fear, Feign Death, Fireball, Fly, Gaseous Form, Lightning Bolt, Sleet Storm, Stinking Cloud, Blight, Confusion, Evard's Black Tentacles, Fire Shield, Greater Invisibility, Ice Storm, Phantasmal Killer, Stone Skin, Wall of Fire. And then Cloud Kill, Cone of Cold, Destructive Wave, Flame Strike, Hold Monster, Insect Plague, Mass Cure Wounds, Wall of Force, or Wall of Stone. So 5th level is the big one, right? We get Destructive Wave, which is a Paladin spell. We get Flame Strike, which is a Cleric spell. And we get Mass Cure Wounds, which is a pretty nice one as well. Wouldn't be bad to cast Destructive Wave and Cure Wounds on one turn if you roll the 10 and get both. We get Alchemical Casting at level 6. So this was kind of the tweak from the Lore Wizard ability. When you cast a spell while wearing the armor that you're attuned to, you can spend 1 additional spell slot of 1st or 2nd level to alter the spell. A 1st level slot allows you to manipulate the spell's energy. When casting a spell that deals acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage, you can substitute that damage type for another one from the list. Let's see. While you cast a spell, you can spend 1 additional spell slot of 1st or 2nd level. So this means this doesn't... It only helps you with if you have 1st or 2nd level spells available. You cannot use a 3rd level spell to do this. It specifically states 1st or 2nd level. If you spend a 2nd level spell slot to increase it, if you roll damage for the spell when you cast it, increase the damage by 2d10 force damage against one of the spell's targets. They also tweak that too. It's 2d10 extra force damage, but it's only to one of the targets of your choice. At 10, as a bonus action, you can replace 1 spell you have prepared with another one from your spell book. You can't use this ability until you finish a short or long rest. That's a huge ability. That lets you, when you're kind of in a shitty situation, like, hey, I really wish we had prepared water breathing or water walk or fly, you can use a bonus action to swap a spell that you have prepared with one that's in your spell book. Pretty big. And lastly, Controlled Chaos. Whenever you roll on a reckless casting table for a spell that, other than a cantrip, you can roll on the table that is 1 level higher than the expended spell slot, which is amazing. You can spend 4th level slots to roll on the 5th level table. And again, reminder, you roll twice. Spending a spell slot, roll twice on the reckless casting table, and then pick which one you want. So to start, you roll twice on each of these tables. For 1st to 5th level, and then you roll twice and pick one. So if you really wanted on the 5th level spell to cast Mass Cure Wounds and you rolled a 7 and a 10, you could just keep the 7 and cast Mass Cure Wounds, or you could roll the 10 and hope to get Mass Cure Wounds again and something else to do 2 spells for the price of 1. I really like this a lot. The armor seems kind of wonky and doesn't really fit with the rest of the thing. The way I've seen a lot of people explain this is wild magic done right. This is a wizard's wild magic, and it's handled way better than the sorcerers. So, let me know what you guys think in the comments below about these. I gave you my opinion on each of them. They are good. It's nice to see that we're still working on additional options, even though Xanathars did just come out. Although it did seem a little bit odd to have new race or new subclasses this frequently after the release of Xanathars. Or maybe that's just me, because I've been doing so many of these comparison videos that I'm so steeped in subclasses right now that it didn't seem like it was necessary. But maybe for those of you guys who haven't had to do a video for each subclass, maybe it seems like it's welcome to you. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll see you guys next time.